We all rely on farmers and ranchers, but farming is riskier than other businesses out there. Crop insurance helps farmers manage their risk. With crop insurance, farmers put skin in the game by paying premiums and shouldering deductibles. That keeps taxpayers from having to pick up the whole bill every time disaster strikes. Today, about 90% of U.S. farmland is insured, providing $100 billion in protection to more than 130 different kinds of crops. It's a testament to the program's success.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse's Phil Brasher, as well as this week by Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. He is a familiar face to us due to his time in the House of Representatives and his service on the House Ag Committee, now in the upper chamber and on the Senate Agriculture Committee. And so looking forward to catching up with the senator now. And the first thing we want to discuss, of course, is probably the biggest news in agriculture this week. That, of course, being the confirmation of Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack, now I believe the 30th and 32nd Secretary of Agriculture in these United States. This was a vote that got pretty broad bipartisan support. I guess just your initial thoughts on what it means for American agriculture to have Secretary Vilsack back at the Department of Agriculture.
Well, Spencer, great to be back on Agri-Pulse. I always enjoy reading your publication, and it's usually educational for me as well. So keep up the good work there. But you're right, Secretary Vilsack is somebody that you and I, Agri-Pulse, is familiar with, and my producers back home are familiar with. So the first thing we did when we saw he was going to be nominated is reach out to the Kansas Farm Bureaus, the Kansas Livestock Associations, the ethanol folks, all the different partners we have in agriculture, and universally supported him. You know, we may not agree on everything, but certainly he's from the great state of Iowa. So many commonalities between my state of Kansas and Iowa. I'm not going to have to explain to him why crop insurance is so important, that in one given year, the wheat crop might be frozen, flooded, and have drought. And then that's a question I get up here from folks is how in the world can you have a drought and a flood in the same crop in the same year? But in agriculture, that's very feasible.
Yeah, Senator, thanks for being here again. Following up on that, obviously one of Secretary Vilsack's top priorities, if maybe his top priority after dealing with the COVID-19, or along with dealing with COVID-19, is climate policy. There's very much a lot of discussion right now in USDA about using their commodity credit corporation spending authority to create a carbon bank that would basically buy and sell ag carbon credits to create a floor price under them. Do you think he has the authority to do this on his own, number one? And number two, do you think it's a good idea?
Well, Philip, it's a great question. And I think you and I have more questions than answers what that looks like. We want to make sure the CCC's main priority is helping those farmers and ranchers, the commitments that we've already made through the Title I programs. And during the interview process, Secretary Vilsack committed to that. So I think that's what's important. And then beyond that, I think there are some opportunities for carbon recapture in agriculture. We may be the only industry that's already doing that. So whether it's cover crops or no-till farming, the ethanol industry, there's lots of opportunities as well. So I'm willing to listen, but I want to make sure that the main priority of the CCC dollars are used towards the Title I funding, the ARC and the PLC programs.
And speaking of COVID-19, you're going to be voting soon in coming days on this $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that the Democrats are pushing through the House this week. The polls show that there's actually quite a bit of support for this plan, even among Republicans across the country. Republicans have talked a lot about the minimum wage issue, very much in flux. Why is there so much resistance to this among Republicans? You're virtually united in opposition to this in the Senate.
Right. Well, first of all, I want to make sure we help the people that need the help. Look, COVID has certainly hurt a group of people, but there's so much good news coming out right now, so much good economic news. Our unemployment in Kansas is under 4% across the country. It's around 6%. We're expecting a GDP growth of 9%. So I don't want to borrow $2 trillion more, $2 trillion from your and my grandchildren right now. I don't think that's the right thing to do. well over half of this money is not used on COVID relief. It's really a big blue state bailout. There's lots of pork in it. There's earmarks in it. So there's monies in there for Nancy Pelosi to have some type of a metro project done in San Francisco, for Chuck Schumer to get a bridge from his backyard into Canada. So let's take a breath. The economy's coming back. And if you don't mind, look, this long, dark, dreary winter is almost over. I can see spring happening right before us. Great healthcare news last week that the vaccines that we're using after one shot, 75, 80% effective. If our president's team and our governors do their job, we can have herd immunity by April or May. And that's what we should be focused on, getting shots into people's arms, getting people back to work, getting our kids back to school. If we accomplish those things, America is going to come roaring back.
And speaking of spending, Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, announced this week that they're moving forward with a big, as he termed it, big infrastructure bill. Is that something, are Republicans going to be able to support that, especially if it's not paid for?
Well, we're very interested in an infrastructure plan and an infrastructure project. If we're going to borrow money from my grandchildren, I'd like for them to be able to utilize and enjoy what that money's being used for. So whether that's, I think of infrastructure, I think about rural broadband, I think about water systems in rural America and sewage plans in rural America. So I do think that we're very willing to listen to it, but you're right. The question is, how are we going to pay for it? The gas tax not paid since 1993 approximately, but yet I've been driving a Dodge Ram truck now for over 20 years, 25 years. And I remember back my first Dodge Ram got 8 or 9 miles to the gallon. I looked down this last weekend and my Dodge Ram was getting 19 miles to the gallon. So we're using the highways more, but we're not spending as much tax on it. So we got to figure out how to pay for it.
Are you worried about this push to put money into electric vehicles, or promoting that shift?
Well, listen, I think we have to be careful that we don't try to get government policy ahead of what the technology and the natural resources we do have right now. That we don't have good battery technology. It's going to cost a lot more to run those than people give it credit for. What are we going to do with the battery disposal? I think we're a long ways away. And then when the government rushes things too much, just what happened with the grids, with the electric grids in the state of Kansas and Oklahoma, really throughout the Midwest, that same thing could happen with our cars as well. So I really think we need to make sure we're talking about apples and apples, not apples and oranges. And speaking of agriculture, I've not yet seen an electric motor strong enough to pull some of the big diffs that we have across the state of Kansas. Have you?
Well, speaking of agriculture, I want to wrap up on that subject today, Senator. As we mentioned at the top of this recording, you are now a member of the Senate Agriculture Committee that will be charged here with, reviewing the implementation of the 2018 Farm Bill, as well as considering the next Farm Bill, whether that be a 2022, 23, 24, 25, if you really want to be a pessimistic piece of legislation. But I guess as you sit in that committee chair now, what are some of the broad looking priorities that you have as a member of the Senate Ag Committee?
Well, as we look forward to the future, I think number one, and again, Pat Roberts taught me so well, whenever you talk about a farm bill, the first thing you do is go sit on the tongue of the wagon and listen to the farmer. And I'm amazed, having been in Congress 4 years, that universally, I think this last farm bill has been well received. Minimal complaints about the implementation of it. I think we made some really good tweaks in it. So I think the bottom line going forward to me is making sure we have enough money appropriated to do the tasks that we want to do. I'm not looking for any big changes, and we got some listening ahead of us.
Well, obviously, a lot of different things we could chat about and pick your ear about in the broad scheme of farm policy, but I think we'll put a lid on it for today and look forward to catching up with you sometime later down the road.
Appreciate being on with everybody, and again, we're just looking for those trees to start budding and the flowers to come up. Everybody have a great week.
For Senator Roger Marshall and Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.